Pardon the interruption, but I'm Frank Isola, and with Mike and Tony off, I feel so lucky to be hosting the show with one of my great friends.
I'm Mina Kimes, and you consider us friends?
Well, I did, but as the kids say, it's been a minute. Where have you been?
It has been a minute. I've been sitting around waiting for the call to host.
Do you do other shows? I never see you anymore on TV. Are you doing other shows, or this is just it?
I'm always available to host with you, Frank.
That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear. Good job. So happy to have Mina along. Welcome to PTI, everyone, with Mike and Tony off tubing on the Shenandoah River. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague from NFL Live and the Mina Kimes Show, featuring Lenny, the aptly named Mina Kimes. Wow! They never do that with me. All right, let's start today with some youth soccer, of course. 14-year-old Kevin Sullivan became the youngest player to take the field for an MLS team last night when he entered the game for the Philadelphia Union late in the second half. He had one shot on goal, and while he didn't score, his 20-year-old brother Quinn did in a 5-1 win over the New England Revolution. So, Mina, how do you feel about seeing a 14-year-old on the field?
It makes me feel old, so I can only imagine how it makes you feel, Frank. No, in seriousness, it makes me feel optimistic about the state of American soccer.
Yeah.
Because it seems indicative of the fact that we are closing the gap somewhat with the rest of the world, the powerhouse countries in Europe and South America, not just because we have more young talent, but also because of the way we're finding and developing that talent. Kevin broke the record, but he's really just the tip of the spear.
Yeah.
8 of the 10 youngest players to ever make their professional debuts in U.S. soccer have done so in the last 4 years. There were multiple teenagers on the pitch last night. And Frank, to me, that's promising, not just because of, again, the talent and their potential, but because it seems like we're kind of figuring out this development thing in terms of the academies, the ways we train these players, the fact that some of them go on to play overseas. And Frank, that makes me optimistic that we won't end up going down the same road that we did with the previous record holder, Freddie Adu.
Yeah, you know, you're right. And you mentioned me being old and knowing something about youth soccer. Here's what I know about 14-year-olds who play soccer. They're worried about playing on the right club team with their buddies, or they're worried about making the varsity as a freshman. They're not playing in an MLS game. So this is pretty remarkable what he did. And you're so right. You know, a month ago, there was a kid, Julian Hall, who plays for the Red Bulls, 16 years old. He scored. He became the second youngest player after Freddie Adu to score in the MLS. And remember, we just got done watching the Euro with Lamine Yamal, who played for Spain. Yeah. He plays in Barcelona. He turned 17 during the tournament. He had one of the goals of the tournament in the semifinals, so against France. So on the international stage, we've seen young players from other countries. Pele, remember, was only 17 when he scored 2 goals in a World Cup final. But you're 100% right about the development. But here's where it gets interesting. A lot of the young players here, to really prove themselves, go overseas. And Sullivan is already signed by Manchester City, one of the richest teams in the world, one of the most successful teams. I remember when you did a story on Luka Doncic when he was in Spain. Remember, the guys like Luka, Nikola Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, they start to develop in their countries, but they want to play in the best league in the world. And that's not a knock on MLS. It's just that the U.S. players want to go play overseas in places like England, Spain, and Italy, just like the young European players, basketball players, all want to play in the NBA.
I love it. 14. When he was born, Frank, I think you were already filling in on this show, maybe, if I'm doing my math right?
I was getting ready to retire when he was born.
All right, let's move on to some older players, to the game of footsie between Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams. Last week, the Jets quarterback said of his former teammate, "I love Davante, can't wait to play with him again." The Raiders receiver then told Shannon Sharp that he feels really good about his team, but if I'm going to be reunited with anyone, it would be Aaron. Adams' agents then called any talk of a trade baseless, unfounded speculation. Is it baseless, Frank?
No, it's certainly not. And I name-dropped Luka Doncic for you, so now I'll name-drop Aaron Rodgers for you because I know you've interviewed him before. Aaron Rodgers does not open his mouth just for the heck of it. He's not making some flippant comment. It's something that he's thought about. He wants it out there. The fact that he said, essentially, we'll be reunited again, there means there's something to it. Even Boomer Esiason, who's a radio host in New York, connected to the Jets, he even hinted that this has been going on for a while. I think there's a chance it could happen. And more importantly, if you're the New York Jets, you're in on Aaron Rodgers just like Tampa Bay was with Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And if you have a chance to get him, you do it. The Jets have not, forget about winning a Super Bowl, they haven't made the playoffs since 2010. So if the Lakers are all in on LeBron, you want to do what he wants in the short time you're going to have him. Tom Brady with Tampa Bay. If I'm the Jets, I do what he wants. It might drive some Jet fans crazy, and it hasn't worked out yet, but that's what I'm doing.
It would be a real change of pace for the Jets to do something Aaron Rodgers wants, but I suspect you're right,
Haven't
Frank.
done it yet.
At least on that side of the equation, right? Not just because Rodgers obviously wants to be reunited with Davante Adams, but because, as you alluded to this, the Jets are all in on this season. They're maybe the most all in any team has been in recent NFL history. Now, that's not to say it would come without any risk. In trading for Davante Adams, you bring on his contract, which is reasonable this year, but goes up pretty dramatically. So they might be paying a lot in terms of draft picks for a one-year rental, but it would still be worth it. My bigger question is, would the Raiders do it? I think Davante would be happy. He's made that clear. But the Raiders seem to believe that they can win. Based on some of their moves this offseason, despite the tenuous situation, shall we call it, quarterback. Now, that could change mid-season if they've lost a bunch of games, but I'm not so sure, Frank, they would be willing to part with their star receiver right now until it's proven that it's the best option for them.
And I'll tell you what, I think Davante Adams has handled it the right way, because you don't want to tick off your organization. You don't want to tick off the fans. So he's saying, hey, this is everybody else, and his agent did the right thing. But come on, after what happened to him after leaving Green Bay, and that's one thing about a lot of these great receivers, and it happened with Hill in Miami. I get it. He's still a terrific player, but Kansas City's winning Super Bowls without you. And that's how the way it works. And he wants to get with a great quarterback. Here would be my question to you, though. Aaron Rodgers last year, 4 snaps, Achilles. I know you're not a doctor, but I know you watch a lot of film. How confident are you at this age he could come back and still be effective?
Last time we saw Aaron Rodgers, when he was healthy, he wasn't great before he was traded. He was actually a bottom 10 quarterback in QBR. And since then, Frank, the only thing that's happened is he tore his Achilles and is getting older. So I am not super confident, but I am confident that it will be an upgrade from what we saw with the Jets quarterback situation last season.
You know, he lives a mile from me. I've seen you more over the last year than I've seen Aaron Rodgers. There's yet to be a sighting, so we're all doubting whether or not he actually does live there. All right, baseball resumes tomorrow, and when it does, the Dodgers hope to change their recent fortunes. They've lost 6 of 7 heading into the break. They have 4 starting pitchers out of the rotation, and they're still without Mookie Betts. It's Shohei Ohtani's first pennant race, and he says he considers anything short of a World Series title a failure. So, Mina, how much of the Dodgers' second half is on his shoulders?
Well, not a lot is on his shoulders. A lot is on Kershaw's surgically repaired shoulders, or Yamamoto's rotator cuff, or Mookie Betts' fractured hand, or any number of the unbelievably copious injuries this Dodgers team has endured. Shohei has been fantastic, and he will continue to be fantastic, and it won't be enough unless some of these players return to health. You mentioned the pitcher situation with the starters, but they actually have 12 injured pitchers altogether. So depth is an issue there, and that's not even getting to how bad the end of the lineup has been. For me, in my opinion, rather, for the Dodgers to actually contend, and this season is about contention, it's not about winning the division, they have to make a big trade, and that's even in addition to some of their players coming back.
Really? I figured it would take 10 minutes. It took you 5 minutes to get the word copious in this story, so I appreciate that. Here's what I love about the pressure that's going to be on Shohei. And you're right, it still comes down to pitching. And when you get to the postseason, you can have one of your big bats struggling, and you could still win a World Series, because it really is a couple of starting pitchers and a bullpen. But here's the thing about Shohei. If you go back to when he came into the league with the Angels, this is where he's finished in the race. 10 games out of the wild card, 21, 10, 14, 13, and last year, 16 games. He has not sniffed the postseason. And we've talked about his former teammate with the Angels. Mike Trout has only had 12 postseason at-bats. Shohei has had a big round 0. They're going to get there this year. They're 7 games up in the NL West, so that's important. But as great of a player as he is, and he is he's worth the price of admission in baseball. Absolutely. Look at what he did in the All-Star game the other night. He comes in as the biggest star, and he hits a home run. But when it gets to a pennant race and then come playoff time, there'll be a lot of pressure on him, kind of like it was with Barry Bonds, who did not have necessarily a great playoff, made it to one World Series, didn't win. But that's what I'm interested to see. Everyone loves Shohei Ohtani, but he's never been in this position before, Mina.
They get to the playoffs and he's amazing and they still lose because of the injuries, the rotation, the lack of the depth, and you come here and you say Shohei Ohtani, 0 rings, 0 wins, I'm going to be so angry. I'm already angry about it.
I don't do that. You only get mad at me when I mention quarterback wins. I don't get too crazy about the rings, especially in baseball, because you need, it takes a team. By the way, Barry Bonds, like I mentioned, 245, 9 home runs in 45 postseason games. But all-time great player, all-time great hitter as well. All right, let's take a break. But coming up, the Texans and the Bears. This is right in your wheelhouse, Mina. Play a preseason game 2 weeks from tonight. Which team is more intriguing?
I'm always intrigued by the Hall of Fame game. And what was a bigger deal for Caitlin Clark last night? Breaking the single-game assist record or losing to the Dallas Wings?
I never said anything about rings, that he has to have a ring. Time to go head-to-head with Mina and test our vocabulary. In toss-up, let's get the first one from the producer over the loudspeaker.
Toss-up, they meet in 2 weeks in the Hall of Fame game. Which team do you find more intriguing heading into this season? The Texans or the Bears?
Football in 2 weeks already? I'm going to guarantee it's going to be hot. I'm going to go with C.J. Stroud. He had a terrific rookie year. Do you realize, great stat on him, he had 6 games where he had multiple touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and he won a playoff game, which is impressive. And they added Stephon Diggs to the team. I get it. Chicago has the #1 overall pick. That's great. But this is about the development of C.J. Stroud, who went to the playoffs last year, won a game, how far he can go in year 2.
The biggest upset thus far is that your stat was not wins on C.J. Stroud, which I was expecting. I do think his win total is going to be very high this year. I think the Texans are the better team. I think they're legitimate Super Bowl contenders, to be honest. But, Frank, I find the Bears to be the most intriguing team, not just because they had the #1 overall pick, Caleb Williams, but because this is a team that's been looking for an answer at quarterback for decades. And the situation that #1 pick walks into is being advertised as perhaps the best situation for a rookie quarterback ever, with all that they've done to surround him with wide receiver talent, including, of course, in the draft, adding Rome Odunze to an excellent room. Those expectations are what make me so eager to see how this all plays out. Because Caleb Williams, as much as I loved him in college, as much as I believe he deserved to be the #1 overall pick, does have some flaws in his game and things that he needs to get better at. And if he doesn't quickly, there's going to be some pretty intense nerves in Chicago. Yeah, and Chicago has not had a big-time quarterback in a long time. Let me give you a stat. 8 rookie quarterbacks have won a playoff game since 1950. 5 of the previous 7 won a playoff game the next season. 2 of those, Ben Roethlisberger and Russell Wilson, won the Super Bowl. Do you see anything like that for C.J. Stroud? I think it's possible, not just because of what Stroud did last year, but because of how good this defense is and how good their head coach is. DeMeco Ryans is truly, truly one-on-one. He did a great job. All right, what do we got next?
Toss-up, bigger deal for Caitlin Clark last night. The assist record or the loss?
All right, so the final WNBA game before the Olympic break, I know there was an All-Star game on Saturday in Dallas last night, the Indiana Fever. Caitlin Clark, 24 points, 19 assists. That's a WNBA record. But Caitlin Clark, like all these great players in every sport, she's all about wins. And you could tell her attitude and her behavior at the end of the game. She was not happy because Dallas isn't a great team, and Indiana is 11-15 after the 3-10 start. She wants those wins. I don't think the stats mean a lot to her, and the stats have been incredible. She's all about the wins and the losses, and that to her is going to be the bigger stat. The stats do matter, though, not just because they solidify what I think is already a pretty clear Rookie of the Year case. Caitlin Clark on pace to shatter a number of records with her playmaking, the amount of points she either scores or contributes to, but also because they are clearly contributing to wins. Yes, not against Dallas, and you can see why that was frustrating to her, but even 11 wins thus far, Frank, is pretty close to their win total already from last season when they had only 13. This is a team that is in playoff contention despite the fact that there are obvious holes on this roster. There's a reason they were in position to take Caitlin Clark in the first place. She is contributing in terms of points with her assists and her scoring to this team at a level that is unmatched anywhere else in the league right now. We have to give her flowers both for the assists and also for what it's doing for their record. Yeah, and let's give a lot of credit here to Aaliyah Boston, who was the #1 pick 2 seasons ago. Great. She and Caitlin Clark They're working so well together. They really have figured it out. How many times you see Aaliyah Boston just rolling to the basket, she gets a bounce pass and lays it in. And some of those assists last night from Caitlin Clark was spectacular. Here's what bothers me, though. And Caitlin Clark and Sabrina Ionescu, two terrific three-point shooters, they're not going to be in the three-point competition tomorrow night. What are we doing here? Does that make any sense?
It's a bummer, but I'm excited to see her in the game, and I'm excited to see this team after the break because they played the hardest schedule, and this woman has not had any rest. She could be even better when she comes back.
All right, let me ask you this, one more. Do you agree with me as opposed to Michael Wilbon? I'm putting Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese on the Olympic team. Everyone wants to see them in Paris. What's wrong with that? Right?
I think based on what we've seen thus far, you might be right.
See, you sound so much smarter when you agree with me. That's it. Let's take one last break. But still to come, Russell Westbrook is expected to join the Nuggets. Is that a good fit?
And a tough day for some big names.
It's happy time, everyone. So, Mina, pay attention. Happy 27th birthday, Noah Lyles. Lyles is the reigning world champion sprinter in the men's 100-meter, 200-meter, and 4x100-meter relay. And the term world champion means something to him. Last year, he said of NBA teams calling themselves world champions, world champion of what? The United States? He also said on Netflix of his British rival, Zarnell Hughes, if you don't have main character energy, track and field isn't for you. Of course, Lyles and Hughes will be among those racing in a tune-up 100-meter dash on Saturday in London.
So I remember when his quote about the basketball team came out, the reaction was Noah who? That's going to change because Tony, he is about to be one of the breakout stars of the Olympics, in part because of his spicy quotes and the rivalries, but in bigger part because, as you alluded to, he is a world champion in multiple events and he has dominated the sport for several years now.
I love how you just picked an Italian name out of thin air, Tony. You could call me Frank, Francesco, Bum, something like that. I love that. Speaking of Tony, happy anniversary, Tony Maiola. This is the Tony. On this day, 30 years ago, I remember like it was yesterday, the New York Jets and head coach Pete Carroll signed the U.S. national soccer team's goalie to a tryout as kicker, even though he hadn't put on the shoulder pads since the 8th grade. Some Jet teammates reportedly nicknamed Maiola Captain Hook. It's kind of mean, for his propensity to kick the ball to the left, but he made it to the final round of cuts before bowing out to Nick Lowry. Maiola was the U.S. keeper for the 1990, 94, and 2002 World Cups, and in 2000 was named MLS MVP, Goalkeeper of the Year, and MLS Cup MVP. And now the Kearney, New Jersey native, who I know pretty well, is a very good broadcaster. Listen to Tony. He knows his stuff.
I remember this story better than I remember your name, apparently, because this was coming off of the 94 World Cup. They were so hot. They barely lost to Brazil. And I remember hearing that he could actually make the team and believing it. And boy, was I wrong. And we have not seen many professional soccer players, goalkeepers, threaten to try out for the NFL since then.
Yeah. Pete Carroll brought in a soccer goalie, a soccer goal, and had some of the Jets take penalty kicks on Maiola. Really smart by Pete Carroll. Became a pretty good coach with your team, Seattle. Happy trails, Russell Westbrook. Your time with the Clippers, guess what? It's up. Today, the team traded Westbrook to the Jazz for Chris Dunn, a second-round pick swap, and cash. The Jazz are expected to buy out and waive Westbrook, who would then join the Denver Nuggets. Westbrook averaged career lows of 22 minutes, 11 points, and 4.5 assists per game last season. He's going to join a Nuggets team that has been looking for backcourt help since losing Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to Orlando Magic.
Frank, I would say that Denver fans are hoping that this arrival, an aging star named Russell W., works out better than the last time it happened in Denver. But that would suggest that there are expectations at this point for Russell Westbrook, and I don't think there are.
And also, if you're the Denver Nuggets, you lost Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who's a big-time three-point shooter. Westbrook, he competes, he plays hard, but three-point shooting is not necessarily his specialty. And when you're playing, if he's on the court with Nikola Jokic, the ball needs to be in Jokic's hands. All right, believe it or not, no errors today, not even Mina calling me Tony. So we're running out of show. Let's go to the big finish. Randall Cobb says he's not retiring, but is taking a studio analyst job at the SEC Network. Your thoughts?
Lovely guy. I think he's going to be a great broadcaster. If it doesn't work out, Aaron Rodgers always keeps jobs open for him. British Open scores. DeChambeau +5, McIlroy +7, Tiger +8. Frank, what stood out to you?
Well, Shane Lowry, who won in 2019, had a great day. And the other one I'm impressed with. How about Justin? Oh, my God, I forgot Justin's name. Justin Thomas. I was almost calling him Justin Turner. He got me all messed up. He had a really good day. He's in third place. Lamar Jackson has reportedly blocked Troy Aikman's attempt to register a trademark for 8. Does that make sense?
I didn't know you could trademark a number. This feels like a story for the Ocho. Steve Kerr says he plans to continue starting Joel Embiid at center. Is that the right decision?
Anthony Davis has been dominant. Joel Embiid, not so much. Last one, Alex Sarr tries to bounce back for his 0-for-15 performance in Summer League tonight. Do you like his chances?
Much like I said the first time I hosted PTI, there's only going up from here.
0-for-15. Not good. I was probably like 1-for-3 today. We're out of time. Thanks for watching. I'm Frank Isola.
And I'm Mina Kimes. And now, here's sports. Bye.